All right, we're going to get this started. What's up, world? This is Thunder Thief, and today I am starting my new podcast for my new album, Past Amore. This first song is called Morning Story. So this song got started one morning in my girlfriend's dining room. As a lot of mornings are, I'm up a lot earlier than she is. And I'd ordered some breakfast from this restaurant called Morning Story. And as I was waiting for it, I was just tinkering around with this new synth that I had called Diva. And I just love the way this thing sounds, man. It really helps. Like, my whole intention with this record, as I started to learn more about the synthesizer, which appears up and down my album, it's just got this naturally beautiful nature to it. And the more I used it, the more I loved it. And it really was an inspiration for a lot of the songs on my record. So I popped it open and just started tinkering with this like arpeggiated sound that I started to unfold. And eventually it came to this. And that thing, as I was building out the chord for it, like I would just add a note in the middle of it, and it had this really interesting rhythm to it. And I knew instantly like I had a very cool song idea to start with, and this was going to be like the backbone. And as I was dialing that in pretty quickly, I definitely listed a couple macros to like connect it all together so I could make the sound kind of evolve and then fall and then repeat. And I loved playing with the reverb and the distortion and just a little bit of stuff to like give it this kind of angrier character at the end of the progression. It starts off like pretty soft and innocent, and then by the end of it is this like massive, giant, distorted melody that is the foundation for the whole song. And I knew that I wanted to get something pretty housey to sit underneath it, because I just love that 4 on the floor addition when something sounds cool and rhythmic, and then you can just kind of like hit this like thumping foundation that helps you just sort of steer through the downbeat of the song. And I knew with the drums in this song, I wanted to continue toying with the idea of like a live kit versus an electronic kit, and having this like groovy rock sort of percussive element to it. And so after a few hours of tinkering, this is sort of what I landed on. So I get that sort of dialed in, and by that time, honestly, the food had gotten there. So, took a break, had some breakfast, and kind of just left it at that point in the day. And this was in like September of 2020, so I think we were still quarantining and just finding anything we could do inside. But I later that afternoon, I picked the laptop back up and started exploring some chords that I wanted to lay over the top of like that drum beat and that progression. And I found this Rhodes sound and this chord progression that I thought was like pretty interesting. And so that sitting on top of the main synth just gave it this dreamy quality to it. And as I was like listening to that more and more, I knew that the intention of this track was to definitely like tell like a morning story. And for me, the morning comes in this like through a dream, and then you wake up and start sort of fuddling with ideas and whatever like starts to spark up in your mind, and then eventually you get a rhythm going and find the pace and the motivation to like go through the day and get whatever stuff together that you need to get done that day. And so the whole spirit of that new intention, like wanting to tell the story of the song, I kind of left it there for the afternoon that I was there. And then I came back home to my studio and I picked up my guitar and started to fiddle around with trying some independent ideas that would hold against the chords. And I ended up landing on copying the synth chords and just kind of playing around them and having that guitar. Initially, it was just some guitar noises and just like the scratching of strings, and then it comes together and hits this. And I have this crazy delay pedal on there that basically like reverses the signal that it's delaying. So it's got this really dreamy, weird, reversed type of energy. And then throughout the song, I add a little more effects, a little more intrigue, and it builds like at the peak of the song into this. And that tone's just like the regular guitar tone, and then I have this octaver thing that puts it up another octave, and then this vocoder synth thing that I just thought it sounded like something you were trying to remember from a dream. And I have this problem all the time where I'll think of something and be like, all right, cool. If it's cool, remember that or bring it with you. And I'll never write it down or record it or do anything, and then I'll try to remember it again. And it's always sort of distorted and not quite what I remember it being. And I really liked having the intention of the guitar sort of follow that mantra throughout the track. So since I put that together, and the guitar part is essentially the same chords and melody that I already had in there, I wanted to create a way forward with the track and another like melody to attach yourself to. I opened up this other synth that I use a lot called Serum, and I use Serum less than I used to because I found synthesizers like Diva and a couple other like vintage modeler synth plugins and whatnot that just have more of like the spirit and heart that I'm looking for. But when you pair up a synth like Serum that kind of has this like cold, icy tone to it, it can come up with some really beautiful things on kind of the opposite spectrum, instead of being like warm and round. It's sort of like icy and cool. And as I was fiddling around trying to find something, I knew I wanted something kind of stabby, something that could sit percussively within the track on its own. And I came up with this. And that synth lead is a combination of two synthesizers that are basically just an octave down from each other that are pretty similar sounds, but I changed a few things about the top one and some things about the bottom one because I wanted it to have like that malady sound where like two mallets were hitting at the same time. And of course, that little end part where it like it has this just interesting rhythm to it that I wanted to honor with like a drum break, and staying true to a classic thing that I do, which is rip off Coheed and Cambria in my own sort of way. I made this tom pattern that sort of went along with the lead and like sort of met with like this little snare roll. And when you play them together, it just sounds so cool when they like match up together. And they can roll together at the end. And even though they are like on two separate rhythmic patterns, they meld together in this way where they meet together at the very end each time. And I really like playing with like downbeats and things like that in different percussive ways. The next thing I had to figure out for this section, because it's sort of like just the B section of the song, and I still wanted it to have this like forward momentum, not quite giving you that breath yet. And I came up with this bass progression that honestly reminds me of like old Radiohead meets like some hardcore riffs I used to play, and I was really happy to like have that sit on top of it. And you can sort of imagine, like, I can't remember which Radiohead song it is, but I definitely, hearing that on its own, you could take a whole different direction with that. And hearing it on top of like that tom section gives it this sort of rock and roll, like sort of start from the ground up and build up this energy. And that gets to just sit underneath that whole B section and build up and build up and build up. And then eventually it drops off to like this silent, quiet, and sort of like underwater feeling. And I took the main synthesizer that like starts off the song, and I threw it in reverse with just a high cut filter on it, just so you kind of feel like you're underwater and get this sort of discombobulated sense of sound. And that thing just feels kind of eerie, but also kind of nice. And I wanted to bring the song all the way down before building up to the very end. And this part was my favorite to put together because it was a culmination of every idea that had come before it. And I tend to do that in my music, where like I'll have one idea at the beginning of the song and then I'll disregard it on like the second part and then bring it back in the third and have a different element from the second on top of it as well, because I tend to write in a lot of loops and things like that, and I'll make way too many ideas to like sit on top of each other at one time. So you spread it out. And I wanted the feeling of this song, the ending of this song, to feel like you're out the door, you're like dressed, you're showered, you're looking good, you're just ready to go. And taking on the whole day and letting it be something that like you want, not dreading it. The feeling of like waking up and dreading the day ahead of you sucks. And I wanted this song to live in opposition of that moment and feeling, to give this dissonant sense of belonging and well-being, and that the foggy dreaminess can be a little distorted, and the sounds and the intentions of what's ahead are totally beautiful. I put this song first because I think it sets the mood great for the rest of the album. It's got the right spirit of overcoming and longing and beauty and speeding up, slowing down, hopefully inspiring, and really setting a zen-like space in your day so you can move forward gracefully. And so here's the first song on my album, Morning Story.